I always felt connected to the rhythms of rural life. The changing seasons, the smell of freshly tilled soil, and the hum of the tractor were constants for me. But as I got older, I became curious about the world beyond our farm. Stories of distant cities and foreign lands sparked a desire for more than our small town could offer. Our life was simple, rooted in hard work. We weren't struggling, but luxury was a foreign concept. My parents were content, but I dreamed of exploring the world. I knew I needed to make a bold move to break free from the farm. Growing up on a farm taught me that if I wanted more than occasional trips to the local store, I'd have to take drastic action. We weren't destitute, but far from comfortable. By age 7, I was already hauling and stacking hay bales. After high school, despite my parents' wishes, my best friend Hal and I enlisted in the Marines. We spent 4 years stationed in South Korea and Japan. Though we were advised to stick to American-friendly spots, Hal and I explored as much as we could, knowing this might be our only chance to see the world. I spent half my money on fun and sent the rest home. Our service was mostly uneventful, filled with sentry duty and occasional misadventures. By the time we were discharged, everyone called me Army instead of Calvin Bostic, a nickname that stuck when I returned home, though people misunderstood its origin. Back in Belford, job options were limited to farming and construction. I chose construction, working hard all day and still having energy to hang out with friends in the evenings. I met Stacey at Higgins' restaurant, and it was love at first sight. After many attempts, she finally agreed to go out with me, and we got married 9 months later. At 24, Stacey and I were happy, but knew we needed to save money before starting a family. My dad advised me to seek better job opportunities, and he was right. We could barely cover our expenses. After 2 years of marriage, we had little savings and lived paycheck to paycheck. The nearby cities of Somerville and Kensington offered more job opportunities, and we hoped to improve our situation one day. One afternoon, Stacey excitedly shared news about a new gym opening in Kensington with better pay. She was eager to apply and hoped the job would help us save for a family. After a successful interview, Stacey started working at Stokes Fitness Palace. Initially, she dressed conservatively, but over time, her outfits became more revealing, which made me uncomfortable. However, when I visited the gym, I saw that her co-workers dressed similarly, which eased my concerns. Her job seemed to boost her confidence, and her libido increased, leading to wild nights together. She credited her workouts and healthier lifestyle for the change, and I was happy with the new energy in our relationship. One Friday, Stacey mentioned a promotion at the gym and asked me to attend a special event for spouses. Though I was skeptical, I agreed to go. On the night of the event, I felt uneasy, so I brought Hal along. He lent me a spy pen that could record audio just in case. When we arrived at the gym, Hal wasn't allowed in at first, but I insisted, and we both entered after handing over our phones. Inside, Stacey looked nervous, standing next to her supervisor, Gerald Goliath Jenkins. She was dressed in a skimpy bikini, which shocked me. When I asked what was going on, Goliath smugly explained that he had set up an arm wrestling contest, where the winner would get both a cash prize and a night with Stacey. Though she initially resisted, the money tempted her, and she eventually agreed. Goliath revealed his plan to erase my memory with ketamine after I lost, so I wouldn't remember any of it. Stacey would get the money, and we'd continue our lives as if nothing happened. I realized Goliath had made several mistakes, including underestimating the loyalty of his accomplices and assuming I wouldn't notice being pilled. I knew I had to stay calm and think through my next move. One of the goons claimed to know the right dose to knock me out, but I was done playing along. Forget it. I'm not competing. If Stacey's considering this, she's yours. Do whatever you want with her. I'm leaving, I said coldly. Goliath responded, "You can't leave, Army. A deal's a deal. I promised Stacey you'd compete and forget everything. I don't care anymore. I just want a divorce." Stacey started sobbing at my words. Ignoring her, I added, "If you want me to compete, you'll have to liquidate me afterward." Goliath dismissed my threat, saying, "Let's get started." They marched me into the gym, where the men cheered and catcalled at Stacey's nearly undressed body. I looked for Hal, but he was gone. "Where's Hal?" I asked. "He left on his own," one of the guys lied. I knew Hal wouldn't abandon me willingly, so I figured he was nearby. I needed help, fast. Goliath, hiding his muscles under a light jacket, addressed the crowd, keeping their hopes high. "All right, everyone, this is what we've been waiting for. All 40 of us paid our entry fees and signed the waivers. Stokes Fitness Palace isn't responsible for any injuries. It's a double elimination tournament. Lose twice. And you're out," he continued. "Stacey insisted her husband, Army, gets a shot too. He'll face the top contender, If he loses, the winner takes everything. Agreed? The men nodded. Great, Goliath said. The winner gets $20,000, a trophy, and a night with Stacey. You've all seen her video. The winner's in for the night of his life. The crowd cheered as Stacey flirted with them. Goliath added, We have official referees from the World Arm Wrestling Federation. Their decisions are final. The matches began, with 2 contests at a time. The gym filled with cheers and groans as the men competed fiercely. I sat in the middle, disgusted, watching my wife allow other men to touch her. Anger boiled inside me. After an hour and a half, the field narrowed to 10 finalists. One of the goons snarled, You just had to open your mouth. After this, I'm going to knock you up and say you fell down the steps. In the semifinals, Goliath easily won, setting up the final match between him and me. He refused to break, confident I was no challenge. I removed my windbreaker, tied it around my waist, and approached the table. The room went quiet. No one believed I had a chance. They already assumed Stacey would be Goliath's prize. I asked, Where's the $40,000 prize money? I want to see it. Goliath taunted, Why do you care? You're not going to win. I still want to see it, I replied. The goons fetched the locked box, and the referees confirmed the money was there. I asked referee Justin Albright to hold on to it and ensure I could leave alive. Goliath smirked. You'll leave, don't worry. His look told me otherwise. I suspected his goons were waiting outside for me. Satisfied, I said, I'm only here for the money. I don't care about her anymore. I'm tempted to leave her here, win or lose. Stacey shot me a furious look. Enough talk. Let's get this over with, Goliath said. Stacey kissed him passionately, fueling my anger. When she tried to kiss me, I stopped her. Don't touch me, Stacey. You're nothing but a cheating witch. If I had my way, I'd divorce you right now. Get behind me. I can't stand the sight of you. Stacey started crying as the crowd gasped. The referees seemed uneasy, and I hoped they realized I wasn't here by choice. Goliath challenged me. Put your arm up, and let's see who's the real man. The room erupted in support for Goliath. I reluctantly placed my arm on the table, locking hands with Goliath. Referee Kevin Saunders reviewed the rules, and the match began. I pushed with all my strength, but our hands didn't move. Goliath grinned and slowly forced my hand down, winning the first round as the crowd cheered. Taking a deep breath, I reminded everyone, best 2 out of 3, and prepared for the next round. Goliath laughed, confident in his victory. You don't stand a chance. The room cheered for him, fueling my anger even more. Kevin repeated the instructions, and we started again. Goliath smiled, sure of his victory. I used every ounce of strength and leverage, but after about 10 seconds, Goliath's strength wavered. My arm locked in place, and I pushed back with everything I had. The crowd went silent as I slowly forced his hand down. When the referee called the match in my favor, the room fell into stunned silence. Goliath jumped back in disbelief. No way! That was a fluke! I'm going to crush you now, he shouted, tearing off his jacket and ripping his shirt to show off his muscles. He slammed his elbow on the table, ready for the final match. I ignored his theatrics, focusing on my breathing to stay calm. Kevin signaled the start, and Goliath threw all his strength into the first push, nearly pinning me. My hand shook, but I held on, waiting for him to tire. Then Stacey's voice called out, Come on, Goliath! Finish him so I can have you! Her words enraged me, giving me a new surge of energy. I pushed back, slowly turning the match in my favor. With one final effort, I slammed Goliath's hand onto the padded mat, and the referee declared my victory. I had defeated him 2 out of 3. The room was stunned. Goliath, in disbelief, asked, How did you do that? I'll explain if you meet 2 conditions, I replied. First, give me the $40,000. Second, let me leave here undamaged. Goliath agreed, and Justin handed me the money, which I zipped into my windbreaker. I addressed the crowd. I've won fair and square. Whether you like it or not, I'm not to be touched. Goliath confirmed this, though I suspected his goons were waiting for me outside. I explained, I've worked on farms and in construction all my life, building strength and endurance. In the Marines, I arm wrestled regularly and never lost. My muscles aren't built for short bursts of strength like Goliath's. They're built for endurance. That's how I knock 'em. Now, I'll take my leave. I retrieved my phone and started toward the door, the crowd still in shock. Stacey called out, offering to drive us home and talk, but I responded, I'll wait outside. Go put some clothes on. She saw it as a chance to talk, but I intended it as a way to buy time to escape. As I reached the front door, I saw Hal's car. He flashed his lights, confirming he was ready. Just then, 3 of Goliath's goons appeared from behind an SUV and started running toward me. But Marines are trained to run, and I outran them, diving into Hal's car. Hal didn't wait. He peeled out, leaving the scene with tires screeching. I managed to escape with my memories intact. "I didn't abandon you in there, Army," Hal quickly assured me. "Some big guys forced me out and tossed my phone on the ground. They said it was a closed event and I wasn't invited, so I waited. I was about to call the police, but since no one else came out, I figured you were okay. But seeing those guys chasing you didn't look friendly. What happened and where do you want to go?" he asked. "Take me to my place," I said. On the way, I told him everything. Hal was shocked and couldn't believe Stacey's betrayal, especially with the pilling plan. He shook his head in disbelief. "What do you want to do?" Hal asked as we pulled up to my place. "Park behind the building. Stacey will probably show up soon. If she's alone, I'll talk to her while I pack. Can I crash at your place for a few days?" "Of course. I only have a couch, but it's yours," Hal replied. "The couch is fine. If she brings any of those thugs, I'll slip out the back and head to your place." "Wait, I have an idea." I took the cash and hid it in an empty fast food bag, which we stashed under Hal's spare tire. "I might need backup. Got your weapon?" "Always," Hal said, showing me his pistol. He tucked it into his waistband and followed me inside. I was nearly done packing when we heard the front door unlock. Hal hid in the closet as Stacey rushed in. "Thank God you're here. I was so worried you'd be gone. We need to talk," she said, sounding remorseful. "Are you alone, or are the guys you hooked up with earlier nearby?" I asked. "It's just me," she winced. "I'm sorry for what happened tonight. I got caught up in everything. I was supposed to excite the guys and I went too far." I smiled sarcastically. "Why bother? They'd already paid. It's not like you'd get more out of them." Stacey tried to justify her actions, claiming she was playing both sides, hoping we'd get the money no matter what. She praised my win and said she was happy to be with me instead of someone else. "That's not how I remember it, Stacey. I heard you cheering for Goliath, telling him to finish me off so you could have him," I replied. She looked down but insisted she wanted to build a family with me. "This was just a one-time thing for the money." "Goliath was sure I wouldn't remember anything. But even if I forgot, you'd still be a cheater, Stacey. You were okay with having me pilled and held against my will. You betrayed me. That's unforgivable. We're done." She started sobbing. "No, you don't mean that. We belong together." Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. "Why don't you see who it is?" Stacey suggested sweetly. "I don't care who it is," I said, suspecting it was the thugs. Stacey grabbed my phone and left the room. As soon as she opened the door, she let in Goliath and the 5 goons. "I have his phone, so he's not recording anything," she said. Little did she know I had already activated the recording device. She continued, "Just hold him down, get the pills into him, and make it look like a mugging." "What is this? Get out of my house!" I shouted. "I'm sorry, honey, but I can't let you remember tonight. It'll be easier if you just drink the stuff and go to sleep. If not, they'll force it down your throat and rough you up," she admitted. "You didn't plan on this," I said, as I pulled out my Glock 17. "Now sit down. I don't want to shoot anyone, but if I have to, I'll strike 3 of you before the rest decide what to do." They froze, clearly not expecting me to be armed. Goliath sneered. "You wouldn't shoot. We'd still get you." "Want to bet?" I replied calmly. "I'm a Marine, trained to shoot. If anyone makes a move, I'll put a bullet in 3 of you. Now sit down." One of the goons hesitated, but finally said, "Why should we? We still have a chance." "You have no chance," I replied. "If you want to talk, sit. Otherwise, I'll call the police. It's your choice." They sat down as I instructed, sliding back on the sofa and chairs to make it harder for them to get up. I positioned myself against the opposite wall, sitting in a kitchen chair with my pistol resting on my thigh. My finger hovered just outside the trigger guard, ready to act. "Look, sweetheart," Stacey said, "just give them the $20,000 and take the ketamine. Tomorrow, we'll wake up $20,000 richer, like nothing happened." I asked how she'd explain the money to me. "Simple," she replied. "You won $40,000 and gave me $20,000 to hold. Then you got mugged on the way home. They might have to rough you up a bit to make it look real, but you'd wake up as my loving husband, and we'd have a bright future." I started laughing, which made the men uneasy. Stacey looked puzzled and began to stand. "Grab his weapon," Goliath urged. "He won't hurt you. He loves you." "He's half right," I said. "I used to love you, but if you stand up, I'll shoot 3 of these guys." She sat back down, shocked. "You're so stupid, Stacey. You fell for Goliath's lie that I'd wake up with no memory and believe whatever story you told me. But you were never going to see a dime of that money. They planned to pill me and have their way with you. They'd record everything and use it to blackmail you into doing whatever they wanted. This was never a one-time deal. Stacey tried to deny it, saying the guys were happy with what they got earlier, but I pointed out the video she made, which could easily spread and ruin her reputation. Now, whose idea was it to invite me tonight? I asked. Stacey admitted it was Goliath's idea. He wanted to humiliate me, not just by screwing her, but by making me watch. He wanted control, to keep me from interfering and calling the police. And once they had their blackmail material, they'd own her. You were never going to get that money, Stacey. They'd make sure of it, they'd use you whenever they wanted, and you'd be stuck. Stacey finally began to realize she'd been duped. She admitted to agreeing to sleep with Goliath, but not the others. I laughed at her naivety. You really think they'd go to all this trouble and not take turns? They'd get what they wanted, and you'd end up with nothing but a blackmail video. And even if you got the money, they'd make sure you paid for it. At the gym, they'd stage my injuries to look like an accident. But here at home, they'd make it look like a real mugging. They'd knock me senseless, maybe even break some bones. You wouldn't have the money to cover the medical bills because you were never going to get it. And if you did, Goliath would just use that as leverage to control you further. And let's be real, Stacey. You'd never go off birth control because you'd be too scared of getting pregnant with one of their kids, not mine. She sat there, finally understanding the mess she was in. I had figured it all out and made it clear I was done with her and her lies. Stacey stared at me in shock. Let me point out another flaw in your plan, I said. You wanted to say I got mugged after giving you $20,000, but there are 42 witnesses, including the referees, who saw me leave with all the cash. No mugger would have left any of it behind. Your story wouldn't hold up. They'd take every cent. How'd an uneducated jarhead outsmart us? Goliath grumbled. Stacey looked horrified, realizing how badly she'd been played. Just because I don't have a degree doesn't mean I'm stupid, I replied. In the Marines, I was trained to think through situations. Earlier tonight, I knew those 5 guys were over liquidation. You claiming to control them because they couldn't take you is ridiculous. You can't control what they do on their own. I bet you're all buddies, but this wasn't just about money. The split would be small, so why risk everything? No, the reward had to be worth it. I'm guessing you told your buddies about Stacey, and they helped you with this plan. Suddenly, Goliath grabbed Stacey and pulled her in front of him. Drop the weapon or I'll snap her neck, he threatened. I'm not going to shoot you, Goliath, but I will shoot 3 of these guys if you hurt her. Eliminating her just gives me more reason to act, I said, raising my Glock. Now, let her go. One of the goons spoke up. Jerry, let her go. This guy isn't bluffing. He'll shoot us. Goliath hesitated, then released Stacey. The goon continued. Look, you're not going to shoot anyone. You don't want prison, and you're not going to call the cops either. Why wouldn't I asked. He explained. We've got 42 witnesses who saw your wife acting like a witch. They think you were in on it, pimping her out. You can deny it, but it'll look like you just got jealous. We might have threatened to rough you up, but liquidation? No way. That's how it'll play out. You can't prove otherwise. Goliath let go of Stacey, who looked at him with a mix of fear and anger. The goon continued. We'd be caught with ketamine and a video camera, sure, but we're vets. We have a plausible reason for everything. Stacey won't report us because she's got no proof. Meanwhile, everyone saw her behavior tonight. She made that video, and you might not want that coming out in a small town. Goliath growled, I need that money. I just bought a new truck. The smarter goon cut in. Forget it. You lost the contest. Splitting the remaining money 5 ways isn't worth the risk. Stacey was the real prize, and we planned to keep her for ourselves. We weren't going to turn her into a promiscuous immediately. We had more events planned with her as the prize. Eventually, we might let her have a kid, but only after she was thoroughly ours. We'd even give her some money back to keep her happy. But now it's over. We're leaving. The man next to the leader spoke up. We'll leave, and you two can sort things out. But honestly, I doubt counseling will help. You'll never truly forget or forgive. Still, I have a suggestion. I can give you some ketamine, a good dose that, with a few drinks, should erase your memory. We planned on giving you about 6 shots of booze. If you love Stacey, you could take it after we're gone. She won't be working at the gym anymore, so she's safe from us. Hopefully, she's learned her lesson about being gullible and the risks of cheating. I was amused by how quickly they were trying to salvage their plan. You think I'd actually do that? I asked. The man continued. It'd be like giving her a second chance. She could explain the money truthfully. You won it in an arm wrestling contest. Most competitors don't live locally, so it's unlikely you'd ever run into one again. If you did, they might mention your hot wife, but probably not her behavior. I pretended to consider his point, but questioned how she'd explain my memory loss. That's tricky, he admitted. She'd have to make it look like you fell and strike your head after drinking. You might decide to get checked out at a hospital, so you'd need a solid story. But you'd still be married, and love can make you trust her explanation. The men chuckled at that, clearly trying to convince me. I suspected they were already thinking of ways to come back for the money. I let him continue. You'd have to take the ketamine tonight, though, to ensure it erases enough memory. You might remember going to the gym, but not what happened there. That gives Stacey the chance to fill in the blanks. I then raised the real issue. What to do about Stacey? I could just divorce her and move on. That seems like the smartest choice, I mused aloud. Stacey began begging, promising she'd never do anything like this again. But you still cheated, I replied. And taking ketamine after you guys leave raises another problem. What if you come back and blackmail Stacey for the money? You could create doubt and tear us apart. The men all shook their heads, including Stacey. I demanded each of them verbally promise they wouldn't bother us again, which they did, piling on assurances as if I was about to let them go. The big problem is, Stacey would have to hurt me enough to cover the amnesia, I continued. She'd need to make it look like a real fall. Could you do that, Stacey? Oh yes, I'd make it convincing, she said eagerly. A few kicks to the head and ribs, maybe even stage a mugging. We could say we went out to celebrate and you got jumped. I could claim I ran for help and when I came back, they were gone. I'd bring you home and kick you here to make it look real. I'd use your heavy boots and leave some bruises, maybe kick you in the balls a few times. Just enough to hurt, but not do serious damage. I couldn't believe how quickly she got on board with hurting me. The 6 men stared at her in disbelief. And tomorrow I'd take care of you, bringing you ice packs for your head and balls, she added, almost gushing. We'd save our marriage, have money for a baby, and I promise I won't cheat again. That includes making out or letting anyone feel me up. I noticed she only said that because I called it cheating. She still didn't fully agree. I asked her calmly, You really wanted to have sex with Goliath, didn't you? You'd be thinking of that when you kicked me. Okay, I won't lie, she admitted. Yes, I was excited about screwing him. I felt his excitement and wanted it. It would have been wild. But now I'm mad at both of you. You for figuring it out and him for planning it. I'd like to kick you both in the nuts. Maybe that could be a condition for letting them go. I get to kick Goliath a couple of times too. Goliath bristled. Screw that, I'm being honest here. You won't remember this anyway, and you won't remember the other stuff either. Stacey's flushed face showed she'd remember everything and enjoy the memory, even if she missed out on actually being with Goliath. She seemed eager to hurt me, just as she had been ready to break my heart earlier, as long as I wouldn't remember any of it. Since we're being honest, I have a few more questions before deciding whether to let you go or let Stacey erase my memory, I said. Both Stacey and Goliath nodded eagerly. You both claimed you never actually slept together and were candid because you thought you'd erase my memory. Stacey even asked that I get a chance to win the prize, though she didn't think I'd succeed. But tell me, did you plan to make me watch before pilling me? You've hinted at it both ways. I already suspected the truth and confirmed it when they responded. Yeah, we thought it'd be thrilling to make you watch, Goliath admitted. Stacey liked the idea of having that kind of power over you. The word power stood out, especially considering how much Stacey seemed to relish the thought of hurting me after I passed out, or maybe even while I was still conscious, just to hear me scream. It wasn't just me, Stacey protested, still not realizing what she was saying. Goliath said it'd be hot if you cried while watching him be a better man. I then asked who suggested it first. Goliath quickly replied, I did, but Stacey added ideas to make it wilder. I followed up with another question. You said she gave you all heads this afternoon as payment for your help. Is that true? One of the men confirmed it. Yeah, she agreed to it to show she was on board and to pay us since we couldn't compete for her. I nodded, hiding my emotions. By then, I just wanted answers. All 5 men admitted she'd done it, each providing details. Stacey then said, Let's let them go and take care of your memory. We can reset our marriage, and I promise I won't be tempted again. I barely kept a straight face. Yeah, after you enjoy stomping my nuts, I said sarcastically. Oh no, I won't enjoy it. I'll just do enough to make it look real, she contradicted herself. I asked the men if they planned to double back for the money, and Stacey after I was out, and they all denied it, trying to convince me. I pulled out a second cell phone, raising my Glock to remind them I was serious. These guys aren't going anywhere far. They'll give us just enough time for me to take the ketamine and maybe stage the mugging. Then they'd come back for the money and you, Stacey. Stacey looked shocked. You'd be dumb enough to tell them I'd taken the pill and they'd return to finish the job, I said. She asked what their plan was. They already have enough blackmail material on you. Do you really think they didn't record everything? They'd come back, take the money, and force you into their plan again? I could have pretended to take the ketamine, waited for them to return, and caught them red-handed. But that would have been risky. Goliath ranted about how a dumb Marine outsmarted them. I asked where the video was, and the veterinarian admitted it was in his case by the door. Stacey retrieved the camera and tossed me the SD card, but I confirmed the footage was also saved on the camera's hard drive. I told them I didn't care about the video and let Stacey decide what to do with it. If you let them blackmail you, that's on you, I said. I had bigger concerns, like the recording I had been making since the beginning. Just then, the emergency operator's voice came through. What is the nature of your emergency? I gave my name and address to the emergency operator and reported, I have 6 men my wife invited to our home to attack and rob me. I'm holding them at under pressure and need officers dispatched. No ambulance is needed yet, but it might be if one of them tries anything. All 6 men glared at me. What the hell? We were ready to leave. You even talked about fixing things with your wife. We gave you the camera. You could have deleted all the evidence. We'd have no blackmail material left, the veterinarian protested. Stacey looked shocked. Well, my marriage is ruined because of you guys, so I'm returning the favor. Now you can explain to your wives why you got arrested and see if they believe you. I doubt they're as gullible as mine. 3 of the men shifted in their seats. I raised the Glock, making sure they saw my finger on the trigger. I wouldn't try it. This trigger is sensitive and takes less than 2 pounds of pressure to fire. And Stacey, I told you I'd never trust you again. You seemed too eager to fake a mugging by stomping my nuts. I called out for Hal, who stepped out from around the corner. This is his phone, I said, holding up the phone I used to keep the emergency call active. Everything's been recorded and the pin recorder is back up. One of the men yelled, "That's hearsay." I shrugged. It'll still be part of the statement, and whether it's allowed in court or not, your wives might not like what they hear. I kept the weapon moving between them, knowing they were close to making a move. Hal, go outside and inform the police. I'll put the weapon down when they enter. When the officers arrive, they'll take us all in. You weren't involved, so secure everything for me, okay? I said, handing him the SD card from the camera. Got it, Hal replied. I'll come down to the station after locking up. We heard sirens as police cars approached. The emergency operator confirmed. Officers are on location. I instructed, my friend is at the door, and it's unlocked. I'm sitting in the room with the pistol held by the barrel. The first officer through the door was Hal's older brother, Bob, a police lieutenant. What's going on here? Army, put the weapon down and step away. I complied, noting his body cam was running. Well, it seems my wife cheated on me, gave these guys heads earlier, and planned to sleep with this one, I said, pointing at Goliath. They threatened to pill me with ketamine and booze. When that plan failed, they came here for a second chance. My wife let them in and gave them my phone so I couldn't record anything. It's in his shirt pocket, I added, nodding at Goliath. That phone should show their intentions. Goliath quickly countered. Ridiculous. We drove Stacey here after her husband left her in Kensington following his arm wrestling win. She invited us to celebrate. He's delusional. He told contestants he feared for his life. I suggested taking us all to the station to give statements and make a public record. Bob cut me off, saying he knew what to do. Soon, everyone but Hal was in handcuffs and loaded into police cars. Hal told Bob he'd secure the house and then come to the station. I knew he'd upload copies of the recordings as planned. At the station, I explained what happened and what I suspected their plan was. I advised Bob to check the case left at my house for ketamine and the camera with the video of Stacey. Bob offered me coffee and then began taking the other's statements. Later, Bob returned. Army, these guys are all telling the same story, that you're crazy. They claim you won the arm wrestling competition and then held them at under pressure after Stacey invited them over. One of them is a lawyer and wants to represent the others, but since he's also a suspect, he can't. They're all writing statements. Do you have any proof? I can't open the files on that camera without a warrant, but I did impound it. I told Bob that Hal had an audio recording of their confessions and was making copies. This changed everything immediately. As soon as Stacey heard about the recording, she broke down and changed her story, claiming she was seduced and blackmailed into cheating by the guys. An officer accompanied Hal and me back to my house with my permission, so no warrant was needed. They secured a small case one of the men had left at the door. Inside, along with the camera Stacey had removed earlier, were 2 bottles of liquor, ketamine, large tubes of lubricant, and some flexible hoses. The video downloaded from the camera clearly showed my soon-to-be ex-wife happily engaging with all 5 men in Goliath, talking about how much she loved the thrill and how she couldn't wait to be with Goliath after he won the contest. Bob might have pushed the limits, but he let me watch the video at the station. By then, I had my own copy to watch later. With enough evidence, Stacey, Goliath, and the 5 men were kept in jail until their arraignment on Monday. I kept the SD card hidden. Bob told Hal and me to stick around, but I decided to leave town. Early Sunday morning, I bought 2 cheap round-trip tickets to Las Vegas for Hal and me. We spent the day collecting discarded sports betting slips, amassing nearly $40,000 worth, planning to claim I'd lost most of the money. Hal and I had a wild time in Vegas, taking photos at strip clubs and posing with liquor bottles to create a story about spending our winnings on a good time. We even made donations to a children's cancer hospital, wearing the sweatshirts they gave us for our contributions. On Monday, I ignored a barrage of calls, suspecting some were from Stacey's parents. Bob eventually texted, demanding I call him back. When I did, he wasn't pleased, but told us to get back home. When we returned, Bob gave us an official reprimand as he took us to the district attorney's office. We claimed we didn't realize we had to stay in town and thought close meant anywhere in the continental U.S. Bob and the DA weren't happy with our explanation. The DA asked me to go over the events again. My story matched the audio recording perfectly, and I was more determined than ever to divorce Stacey. I visited a lawyer, Mr. Price, who advised me that the divorce would cost around $2,000 but was the least of my worries. He told me not to stress about hiding the money since I didn't have much left, and that the criminal charges against Stacey and the men were more important. On Tuesday, I found a new apartment close to work. Though my parents would have taken me in, I preferred to stay independent and away from Stacey. By then, rumors had spread in our small town. The story was that Stacey had an affair with her boss, who came to my house to confront me, and I held him at under pressure until the police arrived. After Stacey refused to move back in with her parents, I moved out. Following my lawyer's advice, I kept the true story quiet, holding onto the audio recordings as leverage. On Wednesday, I started receiving more calls from unknown numbers. The 4th was from Gloria Jenkins, Goliath's wife, who texted, asking me to call her. Curious, I did. She picked up immediately and told me her husband claimed everything was a misunderstanding. She wanted to meet in person, so I drove to Kensington, bringing Hal's recording pin just in case. At the cafe, Gloria introduced herself. She was a stunning woman, blonde and in her late 20s. Despite her calm exterior, I could sense her anxiety. I wasn't sure if she was a sufferer or in on the scheme with her husband, so I stayed cautious. She explained that all she knew was her husband and his friends had been arrested after an incident at my home, and she suspected she wasn't getting the full story. She asked me to explain what had happened. Realizing she and the other wives deserved to know the truth, I suggested inviting them over. I pointed out the 3 women sitting across the cafe who had been watching us since I arrived. Gloria seemed impressed by my observation and invited the women over. After introductions, one of them nervously asked, "Is it as bad as we imagined?" I replied, "Maybe not for you, but for me. It's the end of my marriage." Goliath had been trying to seduce my wife for a while. He succeeded in everything but actual sex, and he and his friends planned to blackmail her into being available to them in the future. I watched their expression shift from disbelief to anger and back to shock, with muttered curses all around. "No wonder the cops held them so long," Gloria said. "They got out this morning and have been with their lawyer since. I assume you have proof, even though the guys claim you don't." I pulled out a flash drive. "I have hours of audio recordings, pretty damning stuff. There's some irrelevant chatter in the middle, but I can summarize it and then you can listen." One of the women shook her head in disbelief. "I can't believe how dumb your wife is. A head isn't cheating? Seriously? And to make a video of herself knowing it would be sent to strangers?" Another added. "She thought it was okay to cheat as long as you didn't remember because of the pills?" Someone muttered. I nodded, noticing how the women weren't shocked by their husband's behavior. "Why would I be?" one woman said. "My husband's an egotistical idiot. My mom warned me he'd cheat eventually. When we heard about an angry husband with a weapon, We figured it was something like this, but this is worse than we imagined. Gloria suggested, "Let's go to my office. We can listen to the recording there." She explained she worked in investments and had a nearby office. They listened to the recording, fast-forwarding through the arm wrestling competition. By the end, they were almost as angry as I was. One woman joked, "Teach me how to bite it off if he tries that crap again." The others laughed, and they all made quick phone calls, none lasting more than a minute. Gloria explained that the 6 men had been tight-knit friends since high school, bonding over bodybuilding. They chased girls but were disciplined, charming, and stuck together more than with their wives. "We girls get along because of them, but our marriages aren't great. We're like satellites around their bromance." Later, when the others had left, Gloria asked me, "Army, you're clearly smart. Why are you working such a low-income job?" I shrugged and explained, "After I left the military, I wanted to stay close to my parents." "Do they need constant help?" she asked. I shook my head. "No, they actually told me I didn't need to stay so close, but I got complacent. It was home. Hal's in a similar situation. His brother's a senior police officer, but he works a low-stress job too." I continued, "While overseas, I read a lot, mystery stories mostly. It kept my mind sharp." Gloria laughed, and I found myself liking her laugh more than I should have. I quickly excused myself, feeling guilty. "You can call me anytime," I told her, though I wasn't sure I should admit how much I looked forward to it. After several calls, texts, and voicemails, Stacey finally tracked me down, pleading to talk. "All right, Stacey, what makes you think there's a misunderstanding? And why do you think there's any chance of saving our marriage?" She looked startled. "You made it clear on Saturday night. You didn't think what you did was wrong. Flirting, making out, letting another man touch you wasn't cheating? Even what you did with those men wasn't cheating as long as I didn't know?" Stacey babbled, "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just got caught up in the excitement with Goliath." "So the next time a hot guy comes along, you might get caught up again?" I asked sarcastically. "And you thought it was okay to humiliate me, wipe my memory, and then everything would be fine?" I surprised myself by staying calm. I wasn't angry, just indignant. Stacey ran through her excuses and finally admitted, "I was wrong, but I want you, Army. I want to have your babies. It was just fun, and I didn't think you'd ever know." "But you would know," I pointed out. "You'd remember and think you got away with it." She suggested counseling, but I wasn't convinced. "Do you want to listen to a recording of what you said Saturday night? If you still think it was acceptable, then we can talk." I had no intention of fixing our marriage, but I wanted her to confront the reality of her actions. The following Saturday, Gloria invited me to a dinner party with the other wives and girlfriends. I wanted to see Gloria, but wasn't entirely trusting, so I carried a small pistol. "I'm glad you came, Army," Gloria said warmly. "I was hoping you'd trust me, but I understand being cautious. You're smart to be prepared." The women discussed their husbands' weak excuses. None of them seemed that upset about the divorces. One said, "They're more worried about money. We're going after half of everything and won't pay a cent for their legal defense." "My husband downplayed the charges," another added. "But when I quoted the recordings, he panicked. He didn't realize you recorded the whole night." I nodded. "Exposing them was my main goal." Gloria giggled. Jerry's reaction was priceless. "How did a jarhead think to record everything?" One woman added, "It saved me from marrying Andy. I need to look beyond the surface next time." They raised their glasses, cheering in agreement. Gloria seemed to be studying me closely. One of the women asked if I'd talked to Stacey. I admitted I had, curious about her excuses. They guessed I'd recorded it and laughed, saying they'd done the same with their husbands. "Damn, your wife is delusional," one commented after hearing the recording. "She doesn't think what she did was that wrong. She's just mad you found out." Gloria added thoughtfully, "She admits her faults, but still wants a future with you." "If that's love, I'd hate to see her version of hate," another woman quipped. Gloria replied, "She loves him, but doesn't understand that love alone can't fix a marriage. There's so much more needed." She looked at me intently, leaving her statement hanging in the air. I waited until midweek to call Gloria, curious to see how she was doing. I was surprised when she seemed genuinely happy to hear from me, and we decided to meet up that weekend. "I'm really glad you called, Army," she said when we met. "I wanted to call you, but hesitated." That surprised me. "I hope you trust me this time," Gloria added with a grin, then joked, "Maybe I should frisk you." And not just your waistband. I stared at her, caught off guard. We're not kids, she continued. I think we both feel a connection. Of course, we met under the worst circumstances. You're probably wondering what kind of shallow person I am to have fallen for a guy like Jerry. I started to protest, but she kept going. I was in love with the idea of love. Jerry was smart, good-looking, and had the kind of physique that made people admire him. It fed my ego to be the one who won him. My mom warned me he'd break my heart, but I didn't listen. By the time I realized she was right, I was already married. But I'm not a quitter, she added sheepishly. Though this is one time I should have quit. I can see why your wife fell for his charm. He could sell anything. He was great at coaching, always encouraging people. I'd never seen him try to seduce another woman, and I'm not sure he ever cheated on me, though he denies it. My mom wasn't surprised by what happened. She said it was just a matter of time before Jerry stepped out on me. At least we didn't have kids. I'm not sure what Jerry saw in me either, Gloria admitted, blushing. To me, it was obvious. She was smart, compassionate, and incredibly attractive. I'm pushy, maybe too driven. I was raised to always do my best and expect the same from others. My parents didn't have high incomes, but they loved their jobs and raised two well-rounded daughters. They encouraged us to try everything, dance, sports, music, so we could find what we liked. Dad didn't say much when I told him about Jerry. Mom spoke for both of them when we discussed it. She even had a few things to say about you. Me? I was surprised. I've never met her. True, but you're part of the story, Gloria said. Curious, I asked, what did she say? Most of it's between us, but she analyzed you and your wife like I did. And? I prompted. She agrees with me. Stacey loves you, but doesn't respect you. I nodded. Yeah, I've wondered if she even loved me at all. Oh, she loves you. She wants your kids. If she just wanted to cheat, she wouldn't have cared if you found out. She went to great lengths to keep your marriage intact. But part of her thinks you're not good enough for her. She wants the upper hand. That's why she talked about humiliating you after sleeping with Jerry. That's a whole new level of disrespect, and it pisses me off. I laughed. It didn't exactly make me happy either. Gloria's eyes filled with tears. You don't get it. It infuriates me. I want to rip her hair out for what she planned to do to you. She might not respect you, but I do. Taking a deep breath, she continued. From the first moment we met, I respected you. You had the guts to meet Jerry's wife, and you treated me with kindness and respect. I liked that. I liked you. Let me finish, Gloria said, holding up her hand. You remind me of my dad. They say girls marry men like their fathers. I didn't with Jerry, but I see some of Dad in you. Mom even warned me not to fall for you too quickly, but I'm struggling here. I have to know. Do you like me? I admitted. I felt guilty about my feelings for you. Part of me wanted to be with you just to get back at Jerry, but I realized I don't care about him. I care about you. And that scared me. I'm married, even if it's to someone who doesn't deserve me. But yes, I like you, Gloria, she smiled. Good. Then we can take our time and see how we fit together. We both laughed, and then she asked, Can we at least kiss? I nodded, and she quickly sat in my lap, kissing me deeply. When we pulled apart, she grinned. I'm staking my claim on you. And when the gold runs out, you'll move on? I teased. She giggled. No, I'll reinvest everything I find. I want a relationship built on love, not just lust. Respect is key. We'll find common ground because I'm a pushy woman who knows what she wants, just like my mom. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about what Gloria had said. I knew I was rebounding from Stacey, but this felt different. Gloria was right. Stacey might have loved me, but she didn't respect me. That stung. Gloria, on the other hand, openly respected me, even comparing me to her father, whom I hadn't met yet. She was clear about her growing feelings, and while I was deeply attracted to her, it scared me and made me feel guilty. Meanwhile, Mr. Price filed my divorce papers, separating my finances from Stacey's. Without a job, she relied on our meager savings and eventually had to call her parents for help. This meant confessing our separation and its cause, though she conveniently left out the worst parts. Her father called, upset, urging me to consider counseling since, in his version of events, Stacey had merely flirted and gone too far with her boss. I sent him a flash drive with the audio recording of that night. 3 days later, he apologized, admitting he understood but still needed to help his daughter stay out of jail. By the end of the second week, everyone involved knew I had the full audio recordings. The 2 veterinarians were sanctioned, unable to handle anesthetics, which made their work nearly impossible. At the gym, every female member was informed about Jerry's actions, and Stokes Fitness fired him to avoid a mass walkout. I couldn't sue the company, but my attorney had considered it. The criminal trial took 6 months, which I learned was relatively quick. The local media followed the case closely, given the prominence of the men involved. Lawyers tried to suppress the audio recordings, the prosecution's key evidence, and the men even tried to press charges against me for holding them under pressure. That was quickly dismissed. Stacey, feeling betrayed, turned on them and testified for the prosecution, revealing how they planned their attack on me. Her confession of agreeing to pill me earned her a 2-year sentence, with 18 months suspended. While I initially would have been satisfied just to ruin their relationships, I couldn't deny a sense of justice being served. During this time, I grew closer to Gloria. She was a tough taskmaster, pushing me to enroll in college. Hal joined me, and we both did well. By the time the trial came, we had completed a semester with good grades. Gloria also set Hal up with Marie, one of the exes of the goons. Both women were remarkable, and Hal joked about their shared fates. Gloria and I waited until our divorces were final before taking our relationship further, and it was worth the wait. On our honeymoon, Gloria revealed she had stopped her birth control months earlier, wanting to start a family with me. She also had a temporary tattoo on her back that read, "Exclusive property of Calvin Bostic," which made me laugh. We both felt lucky to have found each other. One day, while out for a snack, we ran into Stacey, who was back at her old job after serving her time. She tried to make small talk, but I informed her that Gloria was now my wife and that we were expecting a child. Another server took over for Stacey, who seemed upset. Over the next few months, Gloria and I settled into a new rhythm. My divorce from Stacey, though difficult, felt necessary for my happiness. Gloria and I focused on our future together, excited about the arrival of our baby. The criminal trial concluded and justice was served, giving me closure. When our son was born, our lives were filled with joy. Gloria and I continued to grow closer, grateful for the second chance at happiness. Looking back, I realized that the difficult journey had led me to where I was meant to be, by Gloria's side, with our son in my arms, finally feeling at home.